Okay, so good afternoon. This is Steve Mazzacane of the Steve Mazzacane podcast. We're getting some numbers in on COVID, so we're looking through that in a second. We'll talk about those as well, but we'll wait a minute for people to log on before we get going. Those joining us, welcome. We're going in just a second. Now, these numbers, Rhode Island just showed 3% positive rate on COVID. Connecticut's going up too. This is going to be really interesting. All right, so those that have joined us, we're up 416 cases today in Connecticut. Rhode Island just announced 3% positive rate in their testing. So let's get ready for round two. So this is actually, so good afternoon. Those that are joining us, this is Steve Mazzacane of the Steve Mazzacane podcast. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for coming on. I know we're getting many emails and comments on how many people listen on the way home from work, which is great to hear. A lot of people listen the next day. They go into the office and put it on. So remember, we record it live at 4 and things can change in real time. I'm watching right now for Tesla results. Tesla kind of is a big mover in the market. So the economy, there's two things we look at, and this plays a role for the politician as well. The market is one, and then Main Street's another. So your employment numbers, things of that nature. There is probably one of the biggest disconnects right now between the overall market, Wall Street, and Main Street. We see some businesses doing great, but it's a lot of speculation. Businesses about social media growth, Amazon growth, those sort of things. And Main Street, we see a lot of businesses closing. I spent this morning talking to a few different business owners in Branford. We're going to have more restaurants closed. We're going to have some serious issues going forward. And to make matters worse, we have the article on Politico. Senate Democrats on Wednesday blocked a narrow $500 billion Republican-led coronavirus relief proposal as the path forward on a broader deal still remains elusive just 2 weeks before the election. So we're getting nowhere on a stimulus package. And, I'm just kind of blown away by, today the $500 billion was a nothing. That was just a nonsense vote by the Republicans. You have the Democrats that have come up with a $2.2 trillion bill. They brought it down from 3 or over 3. Granted, in that $3 trillion deal were a lot of things that probably didn't belong and weren't necessarily related to Corona. And I get that. And I actually saw one meme that said if you add things to the Corona package not related to Corona, it's like price gouging during a storm. There's some truth to that. Throwing things in when you think you have emotional support for a bill is wrong. It just is. Republicans took forever to come up with a counter proposal. They come up with a ridiculously low counter proposal. A lot of it has to do with what states and towns get money. Trump does not want money to go towards Democratic towns, especially towns that were not run fiscally well. Problem is, COVID's not their fault. COVID's not the fault of anybody. So even if you were not run perfectly, COVID, did things to you no one could have expected. And so we're going back and forth and back and forth. And I would have said, okay, this kind of made sense from a strategy standpoint for the Republicans to wait until, say, 2 weeks ago. Because had they quickly passed a stimulus package 2 weeks ago, they could have gotten those $1,200 checks out. They could have gotten unemployment going. Trump on the check, like it comes with a note from him and it's signed Donald Trump. And that possibly could have helped them politically. But now that we're 2 weeks prior to an election, there is no help to be had. There's no checks that are going to go out before an election. There's no unemployment that will be paid before the election due to any stimulus package. So there's no incentive by the Republicans to come to the table at all. The Democrats are trying to push for something. The Mnuchin is negotiating for Trump. They came up with a $1.8 trillion deal. So you would think at $1.8 trillion and $2.2 for the Democrats, there'd be some room to negotiate. It looks like there is, but you don't have the Republicans in the Senate willing to play ball. So you have this massive disaster. In the meantime, people don't have money. And the time that people can stay in their apartments or homes or mortgages or what have you, there's been all these delays to being evicted or put out or calling in those loans. That will run out. And this is where Congress is an absolute disaster. If we go to, I'll open it up now. And if you're home and you look up this stuff with me, it may be helpful as well. I go to Real Clear Politics. I look at this every day. And I look at favorability ratings and the numbers and where we stand. If we click on the national average now, Biden's at 50.6, Trump's at 43, which means the spread is 0.6. This is the national average. It's not as important as our swing states, but our national average. If we go down to the map, Biden led 51.8 to 41.8 on October. So in 11 days, Trump is now at 7.6. 2.4 points off that 10, right? So we're at 10, 11 days ago. Let's write this down. Get this line to line up for me. October 10th, it was up 10. On the 21st, it's 7.6. We have 2 weeks. So let's suppose that momentum continues about the same pace. Over the next 11 days, another 2.4 comes off. You're down to 5.2 point lead. Remember, these have a delay of 2 or 3 days, right? Many of these polls. So there's 3 extra days after the 2 weeks, the 11 days to 14 days, and then another week after that. So we can say Trump, realistically, if this momentum holds up, can get this to 3 to 5 percentage points nationally. Now, remember, California is going to vote for him 60% to 40%. So you have these huge population areas that are going to be overwhelmingly Trump. And that's kind of skewing this number a little bit. So if Trump is within 3 to 5 points on Election Day, he's right there. Right there. And right now, the numbers are showing us he has momentum. Now, let's go back a little bit and look at the states that matter. And these are our swing states. And so if we look at the top battlegrounds, and we're looking under Real Clear Politics, again on the right-hand side, top battlegrounds, Biden's at 49.2, so he's not getting over that key 50% threshold. That's a big number. And Trump's at 45.4. Let's go and compare this over time. So right now, Biden leads 3.8. It was an even 5 points on October 13th. October 13th plus 5, and right now plus 3.8. So 1.2 points in polling down in 8 days. We have 2 weeks to go. This thing is far from over. And it's amazing because it looked like the numbers stayed fairly consistent for the longest time. That Trump had locked in his base, Biden has locked into his base, and Biden was up. But we're seeing the same thing happen from 4 years ago. Trump is making a late run. And I explained this yesterday, and I know people, I got a fairly long, not happy email when I talked, and I made a statement yesterday that people like Trump. And John, I'll talk about the Hunter Biden thing in a second. But people like him. You know, you don't get into kids' movies not being liked. He was a celebrity for years. He was Kardashian before Kardashian. He was Paris Hilton before Paris Hilton. He was known, his brand was a successful businessman. Was he a successful businessman? You can argue that. What he has certainly done was build a successful brand. And by the way, that's what everybody tries to do. That's what the Kardashians do. And that's what Hilton does. And that's what every major corporation, McDonald's and Burger King and 3M and every major corporation individuals trying to promote themselves. In the age of online influencers, it's about building a brand. And Trump did this unbelievably well, to the point that most of the buildings with his name on it, he doesn't own. That's just part of his brand. Being in kids' movies, being in Home Alone 2, that's part of his brand. And it was a positive brand. You're Fired on The Apprentice was part of his brand. So you can say he wasn't a good business person because he had some businesses fail. No question about it. But every business person has businesses fail. The investors who put money into Facebook had businesses fail. Everybody does. And that's his question about his taxes. That clearly had no impact. The New York Times put out article after article after article. Wow, holy God. Tesla, I'm sorry, if you're just listening, not watching, or know what I'm talking about. Tesla beat earnings. Expected to be 57 cents a share. Beat it by 76 cents. That's unbelievable. This is a spectacular company. I don't know. I've never seen anything like this. If you invested $100,000 in Tesla on March 18th, at the worst part of the economic crisis when COVID came, you made 5 times your money. It's just nuts. And it's so speculative. Tesla is so much more than a car company. It is a spectacular, and the market is probably going to soar tomorrow on this. They're an energy company. They're a car company, an energy company, a tech company. It's just spectacular. In any event, we saw these polls stay relatively even. And 4 years ago, we saw Trump get closer and closer and closer. And so yesterday we talked about momentum. People like Trump. They're looking for a reason to vote for him. And so the question then becomes, how much are the polls off? Are there people deliberately saying they're voting for Biden when they're voting for Trump? Or there are people that don't love Trump, don't understand the issues, are tired of the tweeting, or tired of the false statements. And listen, I don't care if you're supporter or not, there's a ton of false statements, a ton of things that are crazy. He picks fights for no apparent reason. But there's still those people who see all those issues and say, I still want this guy because I'm tired of the political establishment. I'm tired of the political correctness. I'm tired of the left. I'm tired of the same Clinton and Biden and Bushes, or with the same names coming up over and over and over again. He's the outsider. The funny thing happened, more people on the right who were part of the establishment, people who worked on Romney's campaign, people who worked on McCain's campaign, came out. Steve Schmidt, who ran McCain's campaign, very, very much against Trump. But every time that one of those Republicans comes out and says, I'm against Trump, it helps Trump, because Trump's message is, we're not establishment. And so as long as you're saying we're not establishment, it doesn't matter if it's a Democrat or Republican saying I'm out, I'm voting the other way. It only helps his cause. And it's amazing that he's set up a system. What he has done from a branding perspective is to say, as long as politics runs as normal, as long as the career politicians want things to run, it's always run, I'm going to look like the outsider and I'm a better option. He's done that. You can call him the worst businessman in the world. He's a brilliant brander. He has branded himself, whether it's through ego or strategy or whatever, as an outsider in Washington, a brand and business person. And people are okay. I don't know that people are saying he's the savior. I think they're saying he's the one to get rid of the shit. They're tired of the same stuff. One of the comments, we're tired of the corruption. Does his Biden thing play a role? Somebody just asked on the comments, hey, Steve, thoughts on Hunter Biden's laptop and how it will affect Biden's chances of winning the election? Okay, so my research into that issue had more to do with how Facebook and Twitter censored it than the actual issue itself. So I can't speak to, I have not seen things that say that it's accurate on the laptop. The story was somebody dropped off this laptop years ago. It was apparently abandoned, not picked up. And then somebody went through it and there was this stuff. Okay, whatever. We're not going to get, I think the FBI confirmed it wasn't Russian interference. I don't know if they confirmed the exact, but in any event, more than what's true or not, the scandal will play a role. I do believe, like I said, I think there are people who are looking for a reason to vote for Trump. And I know there's Democrats out there that will call me crazy, but I believe that's the case. And I'm going to tell you, if he gets on that stage in the next debate, and the same person from the first debate doesn't come out, if that happens again, I think the numbers go to Biden and it's over. But if he comes out in the debate and looks presidential, even for a few minutes, he could do one of two things. He can look presidential and stay calm and cool and collected. I'm not sure he has the ability to do that. The second thing he can do is be human. Make some sort of joke, make something that makes people laugh, show some sort of humanity. Because when you have people that want to like you, you just have to show that that you're human, there's something to like. That's all you have to do. He has that opportunity to do it. I've said this before. How Biden's not up 20, we don't know. Denise, you just said, no, the FBI has not said that Russia was not involved. Okay, again, I haven't done enough research into that. My research was into the journalistic side of it, which is a whole nother issue on Facebook and Twitter and the role they should play in deciding what news you get, and are they a platform or are they a publisher? We could talk about that a little bit too. John, Trump was impeached for Trump was impeached. I'm reading a comment here. Trump was impeached for asking about Biden's corruption, which is now proven. First of all, I don't think anything's proven. I haven't heard anything is proven. So I just hold on just a second. I know that it was out there. I'm not saying it was false. I'm just not saying it was proven. Why is the left and the media brushing this off? This won't end well for Democrats. Listen, I think this may be very similar to the Comey issue from 4 years ago. It doesn't have to be true to be effective. It doesn't have to be accurate to do serious, serious damage. And all elections tend to tighten up at the end anyway. There's so that's natural. They tend to tighten up, unless it's just a massive blow, but they tend to tighten up. Two, Trump has a track record of getting closer at the end. Three, there's no excitement for Biden. Biden is not Obama. Obama was an otherworldly figure, and we know firsthand Obama very much stood up to his own party. To anybody who believes Obama was far left, that was nonsense. Obama spoke to a massive majority. And quite frankly, he came very close the second. I mean, Romney was right there. So, it took that type of person, someone who was not part of the establishment, not someone who had held office for a long time or a significant amount of time, not a huge player in Washington. Obama came in and crushed Hillary, a name everybody knew. Let's put this in perspective. At that time, with terrorist concerns and all of those issues, a guy with a Muslim-sounding name comes in, beats the establishment on the Democratic side. The Democrats then, 8 years later, put that same name, Clinton, again, lost, and now they put another rehash, Biden, again. Biden's run multiple times for president and lost. So I don't know what the Democrats are doing, why they're not getting. I think this would be a different race if you had Buttigieg running, because at least it's a fresh name. You gave people an opportunity to see, what does this guy stand for? Biden, you're putting the same names out, the same names out, the same names out. Clinton, Biden, Clinton, Biden. So it's there for Trump. The numbers show, we saw this this morning, among black voters, or yesterday, and Latino voters, Trump's getting higher percentages than 4 years ago. He's losing some of the white vote in some key states. And a lot of this will come down to Pennsylvania. Democrats are releasing Obama, which is big. He's going to start stumping, which is massive. I'm surprised that didn't start a month ago, but it's massive. John, this is a comment. All right, so let me read both of these because we have opposing views here. Denise, Well, that's the problem with Facebook and Twitter. They don't want to be news sources, but unfortunately, many people do get their news from them. Okay, so we have a legal issue, an illegal designation here. I think the law is called 230. I got to look it up, and maybe we'll talk about it tomorrow, where if you're a platform, you're protected. So if you, as a news person, if I write something that's not true, X person says X, Y, Z, and this caused this problem and whatever, this person broke the law, but I did it without good faith evidence. Doesn't mean you're never going to post something that's not true, but I have the support to back it up. Is Obama speaking right now? Yeah, unleashing Obama is going to be significant. That can hopefully, well, I don't want to say hopefully because, yes, I'm a Biden voter, but I didn't mean it that way. He can potentially galvanize some of that base and get them going. All right, so let's go back to this. Twitter and Facebook and Snap, all these places got protection legally by being called a platform and not a publisher. When you're a publisher, you could be sued. If you write something that's slanderous or libelous or false and didn't do a good faith research on it. Now, you can have 3 sources that lie to you. That can happen. And if you have those 3 sources and they're good sources and they're confirmed with other sources that may also be lying to you, you're not going to get charged with something. But if you're a publisher, you're responsible for what you write. As a platform, you're not responsible. So you cannot sue Facebook for posting something that is completely false until Facebook and Twitter start saying, I'm going to choose what information you get. Because now you're no longer a platform. You're not just a forum. Think of Facebook as a big room and everybody can come in and shout. And as long as you allow everybody in to shout, you're fine. Okay, I'm not responsible for what they say. So if they say things if they say kill somebody, that's a different story, right? But if they say, as long as it's legal, if they say the Newtown shooting was faked, and they did say that, absurd, but they did say that. They're allowed to say that. The platform, they're a platform. We're not a publisher. We don't decide what gets said. But now they take a stand and take down a New York Post article that was, I don't know if it's true or not, making no claims, but extremely critical of Biden or his son. It's a really odd time to start making that stand. And you're going from saying, okay, we're just the room, we're just providing the space for you to get your message out. And now you're saying, I'm going to decide what message gets out. That is a massive change. And if a lawsuit is filed, and let's not be shocked if there is one, that says, wait a minute, you're a publisher now, and we can sue you for content. Facebook has serious amounts of money, so they'd be able to manage that probably. Twitter, probably not. Jack Dorsey, I don't think has that type of revenue. But it is a massive change to how we view social media, and a massive change to what they can call themselves. And to do this 2 weeks before Election Day, clearly favoring one side, was, in my opinion, a massive business mistake. Now, maybe it was a moral stand. I don't know. We won't know the answer to that until it's true. And if this story ends up being true, Facebook and Twitter have some answering to do. But they may be opening themselves up to massive legal issues, as well as everybody. Now Snapchat and Instagram, and Instagram is Facebook, but all of those organizations, if they're not forums where anybody can go present their information, barring illegal things, and they are actually deciding what information goes out there, just like an editor would be for a newspaper. Just like I decide what goes on Brantford 7, or somebody at the Register decide what goes on. We get to decide that, and we decide what's published. Now, I have some protections, right? If it's aggregated from a third source, it's the source, those types of things. But if it's written in my name as a fact, without sources, without accuracy, I can be liable. Facebook and Twitter were not to this point. That decision may change that. He's speaking right now as you speak in Philadelphia. I'm guessing that's, what is that? Let's go to CNN. See, is Obama speaking? It's a commercial. So, and John Mancini, so because they're a platform, they can secretly influence access to information about politicized topics. Shameful. Yeah, look, I got to tell you, I don't think Mark Zuckerberg gives a damn about politics. I think he cares about the business, and that's it. So I think he's thinking in those terms, and I think he has a certain disdain for Washington anyway. So I don't think he's trying to go to one side or the other. I think, if anything, they were trying to be careful not to hurt Trump. They didn't want to be seen as favoring one side. That's just my gut feeling on Zuckerberg. MSNBC? MSNBC. By the way, I love this Comcast remote where you just call it out. Obama speaking with I don't know why he's speaking with a mask on when he's not in front of, like, he's 20 feet away from everybody. But Obama is a secret weapon. I don't know what took so long to put him out there. This guy is a guy who can motivate people. And when you have a higher percentage of black voters, a higher percentage of Latino voters voting for Trump, buying into the rhetoric, whether you agree with it or not, how Obama was not out there 2-3 weeks earlier may end up being the mistake in this race. Because Biden can't speak. Let's be honest. Biden's not a good speaker. He hasn't motivated anybody to do anything ever. Obama can. And so can Michelle. And look, there's all these bad anecdotal things for Biden right now. Trump rallies are packed. Right or wrong, COVID could end up hurting Biden because he's not having anybody at these rallies. Seeing visuals of 12 seats spread 6 feet apart is not good. It's not helpful. And it's going to be spectacular. I mean, election night's going to be amazing. Remember something. We may not have an answer for this for weeks. There's some states that are going to take 3-4 days minimum just to count their absentee ballots. And some of those are swing states. So we're used to that night, waiting for results and waiting for results. I remember 4 nights ago, I was at Republican headquarters, which was now it's local. At that time, I think it wasn't SBC. It might have been Barada or something like that. And I was probably not the only Democrat in the room, but one of the few liberals in the room. And I wouldn't say I'm a liberal, but I'm certainly lean left. And it was just amazing as the results came in. It was just a shock. As the numbers came in, you're like, holy cow. And you may have the same moment again. And this is where and listen, even if Biden wins, it's going to be by a few million votes. It's not going to be by 30 million votes. Democrats have to start realizing that demonizing not just Trump, but anybody who votes for Trump, or anybody who sympathizes with Trump, or anybody who ever even supports anything Trump does, is not the way to go. The only election you won was when you had Obama. Besides that, Bush twice, now Trump, which was a shock. You're not doing anything better than the Republicans are. And I'm looking at registration numbers in states like Florida, and Republicans are blowing you away in new registrations in Florida. So the self-righteousness and the assuredness and the confidence that we're seeing from Democrats, and we got to get this crazy person out of the House, and it's all this, I see all over it. If you're a supporter of him, you're a rube, or you're stupid, you're an idiot. No. Understand why people are voting for him. They're tired of this shit. And then you have to ask yourself, as a Democrat, and individually, am I part of this shit? Am I on social media demonizing the other side? Am I posting things attacking people who disagree with me? It's amazing in politics how one thing is this, we have to stand for this, but 3 years ago you didn't stand for that at all. Suddenly it's just the topic du jour. Don't be shocked if Trump wins. Let's go back to the Real Clear Politics sheet. All right, so let's go through. Let's suppose for a second the polls are off 4 points in battlegrounds, right? In battlegrounds is where most likely Trump supporters will say in a poll they're voting for Biden. So in battlegrounds, Florida, Biden leads by 1.6, so Trump would win that. Pennsylvania, he leads by 4.2, so he would win that. Michigan, he wins by 7.2, so he would win that. Wisconsin, he leads by 4.6, so he would win that. North Carolina, he leads by 2.3, so Trump would win that. Arizona, Biden wins by 2.8, so Trump would win that. So in these battlegrounds, Florida, North Carolina, and Arizona, would go Trump. Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin. I think that delivers it for Biden. Let's go to electoral map. Well, we'll look at this tomorrow. We'll do this in a little more detail. But the one thing we'll do before we go away, let's look at the betting odds. Right now, the latest betting odds, 63 to 37. So you can put $100 on Biden right now to win $63. So you bet $100, you'll win $163 back if he wins. If you bet $100 on Trump right now, you basically almost triple you'd get $300 back. If I was betting and wanted to blow $100 or take a risk on $100, I'd put it on Trump. Momentum is everything. 10 points to 7.6 nationally, 5 points to 3.8 on battleground states. Let's watch that. Look at this map on Real Clear Politics. If on Friday or next Monday, you see Biden at +3 or below, Biden's in trouble. We'll talk more about that tomorrow as we go over it. I didn't even look. I'm sorry if there's any more comments. Fred, Obama definitely motivated black voters to go out and vote, especially when he ran. Can he motivate the black vote for Biden? Biden is not Obama. Yeah, listen, if Trump is already taking a larger percentage of the black vote, the problem Democrats have to face is if there's no sense of urgency, there's no love, there's no huge energy around Biden, right? So this idea that there's going to be massive turnout and all of the African-American community is going to, John, I'll go back to it for a second, but all the African community is going to come out for Biden. That's out the window. That's not going to happen. So, and we're seeing more of the people switch over to Trump. And what we know is there's energy on Trump's side. So we're going to get the Trump supporters to come out. Can the Democrats get their base to come out? Now, I'll tell you this. We're in Connecticut. I have probably gotten 30 text messages from MoveOn.org and some Democratic organizations to the point that you basically want to say, I'm not voting. Like, enough with the text messages and the nonsense basically happening. So I don't see any energy on the Biden side. I just don't see it. I don't trust the polls because I think the Trump supporters throw off the polls. If this race was between who was running on the Mitch McConnell on the Republican side and Biden, I would trust the polls a lot more. But Trump, it's different. It's just different. And with 2 weeks to go, we're seeing some of the same things that happened 2 years ago. Don't be complacent, Democrats. But it might just end up being the same crap not crap, but the same process we saw 2 years ago. John, your comment was Obama knew everything. He spied on Trump's campaign using a knowingly false dossier. All right, media needs to cover the truth and stop covering for the DNC. Okay, okay. Yeah, that's the only thing I can say to that. I didn't mean to skip your comment. There was nothing intentional about that, but we're past that. We are where we are, and we move forward. But I'm just trying to look at the numbers, the polling, and what we can do. Trying to analyze what those numbers tell us. So, okay. My response is I'm not going to sit here and talk for 10 minutes about something that happened that claims to have happened 4 years ago. That's not what we do. We're about looking forward. We have an election now to talk about. It's just not. We could also talk about who started the Iraq War, but I'm not going to go back in history. All right, guys, thanks for joining me again today. We'll be back tomorrow. Emails, questions, send them in. I'll be glad to try to answer them. We haven't gotten any questions on local issues. And nothing is really pressing. The planning and zoning meeting from last week wasn't overly newsworthy, so there's nothing earth-shattering there. But if there are local issues to talk about, we'll get there. We will talk about a fundraiser tomorrow for McGurk, and then we'll talk more about whatever numbers we have nationally. We'll talk about. Okay. In any event, thanks for joining me, guys. Have a great night. Enjoy your evening. I'll talk soon.